I'm really excited as a lifelong learner myself to have two brilliant leaders in business who are building an incredible business, Dan and Tara of Heights, to this edition of Secret Sauce.
Hey everyone, how are you?
Wonderful. That was very stars in your eyes, Matthew. I'm going to be, and then we appeared.
Sure. So, I guess I'll go first. I am the co-founder of Heights, and my background is I've been an entrepreneur for, I think, 8 years now. And before that, I was in advertising and marketing and sales. So the idea for Heights, or I should really start with what Heights is. So Heights is a brain health and mental wellness company. We have one product at the moment that we sell online as a direct-to-consumer model, which is a smart supplement that's all the key natural nutrients designed for your brain's health and mental performance, which we call a smart supplement, which frankly is Tara's area of responsibility, as she will come on to. Anyone will be delighted when they hear more about my background. I had absolutely nothing to do with what goes into it. And the I suppose idea for Heights really came on the back, which again we can discuss, but it came off the back of a bout of insomnia that I suffered about 2.5-3 years ago, where I had it for about 6 months and tried all the different things to cure what I understood to be a mental health problem, like therapy and mindfulness and, all the different things you would think if you had a mental health problem. And in the end, I met a dietitian through a friend who recommended that I took some supplements, and I was highly skeptical. And suffice to say that that within 2 weeks, my insomnia went, my anxiety went, and I was much more perky. And I started reading science papers because I didn't really believe it. I didn't really think that nutrition or nutrients were really part of the mental health or brain health world, and was surprised to see so much research in that space. And I ended up writing a newsletter on brain health, sharing the things that I was learning from science papers every single week, and sort of building up an audience through the newsletter. I guess through that process is kind of where I learned about Tara's work. So I was just geeking out on anything neuroscience, and I came across this very interesting neuroscientist called Dr Tara Swart, who'd released a book that I then read and loved. And then how I actually met Tara was I tweeted her, which is incredible to say that a book review of you sucking up to someone that you're fanboying would actually work, but it did, and now we're colleagues. So that's a good intro for you, Tara.
Thank you. I think I should start by saying that I don't become colleagues with or even necessarily reply to everyone that randomly tweets me.
I was pretty surprised.
Well, I think it really is the story of how much we had in common. So I had been a medical doctor specializing in psychiatry, and I'd done a PhD in neuroscience before that. And then 13 years ago, I changed career and I became a leadership coach. And then I started to speak and write more about neuroscience, write some books. And but in my personal life, I'd always been really interested in nutrition, in cooking, in supplements. And so when I first met Dan, the conversation was like we were just talking over each other, basically trying to say the same thing. And I think the fact that I was already living the nutrition is a really important part of brain health and mental health kind of really made sense. And personally, I would say that previously when I was traveling, I could have been mistaken for a drug dealer because I would have 20 bottles of supplements in my suitcase, and now I only need to take one thing. So, the very lovely slim Heights bottle with, for me, the brain nutrition comes first. It's really important, and I know that I get all of those things from Heights. And there are a few other supplements that I tried to squeeze into that double capsule that I couldn't yet, so they're going to be bolt-ons. But so maybe now only take 3 things, whereas I really could take 10 to 20 very easily if I was trying to, build up my resilience, reduce stress, do all the things that I'm really focused on as part of my job in my life.
the honest truth is that I'm very surprised I'm running this business. I was previously running a tech business, and I ran with my co-founder, Joel Freeman, who's my best friend, and we've run 3 companies together, one successfully, one unsuccessfully, and this one, which I hope to be a huge success, but we've learned to bring brilliant people like Tara along the journey earlier for this time round. The reality is I'm very... when I was running a digital business, there's quite a lot of feedback. Where's that coming from? Is that you, Tara? Okay, got it. It's quiet now. So when I was running a mobile company, it's very hard if there's entrepreneurs in the room as well. It's really complicated to try and innovate in mobile and in tech. Interestingly, the first thing I did when I got told to take supplements, and I was recommended, by the way, very generic ones, DHA, omega-3, B vitamin complex, and then blueberry extract is probably the most quirky of all the options, which is an antioxidant. I went straight into the major retailer on the high street here, which was Boots, and the other one being Holland and Barrett. And I just bought the main brands that I saw selling that stuff. And then I sent a picture to the dietitian that had recommended it to me. And I was like, there you go. And she's like, no, I'm really sorry, I should have mentioned that. Basically, there is, and this is where I first learned about it, there is a massive gap globally between the minimum amount you're able to say as a brand to make a claim, like supports healthy brain function, supports energy, all this stuff, and the efficacious dose according to science. That was the first time. So my example that I give freely is 7C's, the number 1 omega-3 brand in the world. To get an efficacious dose, so I was recommended to take omega-3 supplements because, as Tara has explained to me many times, but your brain is basically 60% fat and 90% of the fat is the compound called DHA, which really just comes from fish and algae and flaxseed, but you need a hell of a lot of flaxseed and quite a lot of seaweed too. So fish is your main source. The reality is the efficacious dose is 250 milligrams, according to science, as a minimum to feed your brain. And 7C's gives you 40 milligrams per day in each dose. So you need to take that product for 6 days in a row just to get 1 day's worth of what science says. And the thing is, this is all in small print on all of the supplements all of us buy. It's legally required for all of these brands to say this. But because there's a difference and most brands operate around profitability and screwing consumers over, that is the reality of what happens. So I went and wasted all my money on what I thought was not that expensive a job buying the supplements. Turns out, big waste of money. Had to go somewhere reputable like Whole Foods or Planet Organic, where they're high quality. Spent what I thought was a small fortune. So my first time round, I'd spent about 25 quid to get the actual dose I needed. Cost me about 110 quid. And I was like, God damn it, that is an expensive difference. And this is kind of where the insights start to come. As an entrepreneur, you look at that and you say, that is absurd. Like, one really easy way to innovate here is to not rip a customer off. So if you look at the retail model, and if you sell in retail versus direct to consumer, obviously with retail, they take 50% margin. So it kind of makes sense when you think about the retailer takes 50%. In the UK, we have value added tax, so sales tax, so 17% on top of that. It's actually quite hard if you're spending, let's say you're spending £20 on a product that lasts you 30 days. Well, 50% of it went to the retailer. So you're really only spending £10 and 17% of the whole 20 was sales tax. You're actually getting about £6 worth of ingredients when you think you've spent 20. So the whole thing starts to make sense as an entrepreneur. And we just started looking at this in a really holistic sense of what is a way to not rip a customer off? What is the way that we can add value? So the other thing that we learned about supplements is so many people start their journey with good intention. Like, some people have a jolt, if you will, which is me. I had a huge, mental health problem, and then a phenomenal insight that nutrition had solved it for me. Once you learn that, you're hooked on those supplements, right? As in, they're good for you, they're natural, they won't ever do any harm to you. So you're always going to choose to take them. But the problem is you might forget. And that's a reality of starting a new habit. People have these good intentions around starting things for their wellness, but unlike, a pharmaceutical that cures an illness, in wellness, all you're doing is avoiding getting ill. So it's very easy to get out of the habit, if that makes sense. So this is where we got the insight of really focusing on creating a product that brings delight to customers and educates them along the way. So essentially, what we do is we create a monthly subscription of smart supplements through your letterbox and your inbox, and we have a list of really world-class coaches, just like Tara, but actually curated by Tara, of people landing in your inbox, coaching you towards better brain habits. It's the habitual nature of taking something regularly that makes it become a habit and makes it become something that you stay doing. I think that's really important, because just to finish up with some interesting metrics from the business side, our initial thesis was, for this to become a really meaningful product that has an impact on someone's health, you have to make them buy into the concept and then, like I say, turn it into a habit that they stick with. And in supplements, the baseline metric is 20% of your customers retain each month, which is very low, but that is very common in something like wellness, right? As in, habits are hard to start, habits are even harder to continue. So 20% is the baseline metric. And with Heights, we've done all these different things, like the coaching content that lands in your inbox, the bottle design, which we specifically designed and researched with people's wives mostly to ask, this is what the bottle looks like. We wanted to design something so unique and beautiful that if it sits on your bedside table or your living room, it's out and it's in front of you and you remember, because out of sight, out of mind. So when we learned what people did with their supplements, they stick them in a cupboard, and that cupboard gets full of all the supplements that kind of remind you of all the habits you haven't continued doing. So we got really obsessed with how can we add product design into differentiation and make sure that people want to keep it out separately and want to keep it pride of place in their home. And like I say, 20% retention month on month is the norm, and we get 94%. So we are by a million miles best in class in the entire industry for retention rates. And that's really important. But that stuff comes from listening to your customers about the different reasons why people stop.
Sorry, there really are two things. As Dan said, it's what's in the bottle and it's what comes into your inbox. So those two things intertwine to really create a version of neuroplasticity that's physical in terms of what you ingest, but it's also mental in terms of what you learn. And so I agree that the product being beautiful does make a difference. It's also really important to me that it's vegan, everything's ethically sourced, there's no rubbish like caking agents inside it, the packaging is all recyclable. And it's a very, Dan, I don't know if you could hold up one of the capsules. I don't have them to hand.
Oh, yeah.
It's a double capsule that has the algae oil in the outside. Yeah, you can sort of see the oil. And then there's another little capsule inside.
Yeah, so it floats inside.
So basically you get that DHA. I mean, both DHA and EPA are important. People might have heard of these in terms of omega oils, but for the brain and eyes, DHA is the really important part. So you get that in the outer capsule in the algae oil, and then inside is the equivalent of 24 blueberries, because another example of what Dan was saying is that to get enough antioxidants, and antioxidants are really important to kill off the free radicals that are the natural process of stress and oxidation that we have throughout the day, you'd need to eat 24 blueberries a day. And even if you love blueberries, which I do, and you eat them quite frequently, you're probably not eating them every day or eating 24. So then we also have the B vitamins. The entire complex is really important for the nervous system, for energy, for fighting fatigue, for fighting mental health problems. So one of the issues with being vegan is that you need to take vitamin B12 and folate, or you can get psychosis. And I've seen this on a ward. I've had a patient admitted, I've been told they've got schizophrenia, and I've sent off some blood tests and they had a B12 deficiency. So you can see how dangerous this can get in terms of, Dan's own story, but also many examples that I've seen myself. We were both very pleased recently that the government in the UK has said that due to lockdown, everybody should be on vitamin D. So we normally get vitamin D from sunlight. Being darker skinned myself, I've always been very aware that I probably don't get enough of it, but in many countries around the world, unless you're exposing half of your skin surface, you're probably not naturally getting enough from the sun. And vitamin D is implicated in all sorts of things like calcium metabolism, and it's very anti-inflammatory, and sort of the antioxidant and anti-inflammatory thing is important for our whole body, but also very much so for our brains. So it's a good interaction of the omega-3s, the B vitamins, the antioxidants. As Oliver mentioned, the bottle can contain 200 mils of water. So once you've used up 1 month's subscription, you can use the bottle to make sure that you're also hydrating.
One of the simple ways I can say is, we've been building a community as we go. So like I say, we've been writing the newsletter for 77 weeks this Sunday. We very, very, very rarely, like insanely rarely, ever talk about our product or the vitamins inside the product or do any selling through that newsletter whatsoever. The process of the newsletter is we share a science paper from neuroscience, psychology, or nutrition. I mean, not a science paper from nutrition, usually a recipe as well. And we promote that to our audience via, me basically rewriting it and putting it into simple English and helping people learn more about brain science in a way that is interesting to them. The reality is, like, we treat our customers like adults. So we always say to them, the best thing you can do for your brain's health and mental performance is not take heights, it's to have a better diet. And we've got over 70 recipes of brain food diets on our website. Brain food recipes on our website that you can cook for yourself at home. We don't get anything from it. We just think it's really important messaging. But again, we speak to our audience like I say, like they're adults. We don't make any promises we can't keep. We don't say you're going to feel amazing on day one. It's complete nonsense. Different people start from different positions. And also we have messaging in our comms strategy. Like when you become a customer, very simply put, this won't work unless you do. So you cannot take, it's like everything in our lives. We want things to be easy, but that's not life. So you cannot sit on your ass eating protein powder and hope to look like The Rock in a month. You're going to have to go to the gym and do the work. And in a very similar way, that's exactly why we send really meaningful information from some of the world's smartest and most interesting scientists, because learning a bit more about how your brain works every single week or every few days in super bite-sized chunks, because no one's going to sit around in the modern day and read, 3 to 6, 10, whatever minutes worth of information. It needs to be 1 to 3 minutes, super succinct, building a nice regular habit of understanding how your brain works. That stuff is actually legitimately the most common feedback we get from our customers, which is including skeptics, by the way, who are like, they'll say things like, well, I'm pretty certain that the pills are doing nothing and I don't believe in them at all, but I'm still a customer because the information I'm getting from you guys so regularly is just reminding me of all the simple little things I should be doing in my week, and I do them and I feel better. So it's really interesting because there are two types of customers. There's the massive skeptics that want to basically take it to prove you wrong, and they end up building better habits and deciding that it's worthwhile carrying on because they feel better. And then there's the ones that really believe in the nutrition story anyway. And then ultimately what you're doing is supplementing, if you will, the product with information that's going to help them. But, on the comm strategy, our entire tactic has been to speak to people like they are mature and already intelligent and curious enough to learn more. So, we don't use misleading celebrities. We don't make promises that we can't keep. We try and make sure that we're just really legitimate and working with our audience.
Okay, so I'll take the first part of that. So in many respects, in terms of neuroplasticity, mental resilience is something that you have to work on all the time and to build it up so that if a crisis occurs, whether it's a global pandemic or a personal crisis, you have the reserves in your body, both the nutritional reserves and the mental and emotional and spiritual reserves to get through that crisis. So, for example, before I went on my book tour last year, I did a 3-month resilience building program where, I cut out all alcohol and caffeine. I focused massively on hydration. I did more exercise than I've ever done before. There was a beta version, it wasn't fully available, so I took a massive amount of supplements at that time. But I'm really pleased that I've been taking Heights since before the beginning of this year, because when this happened, I know that that those reserves have built up in my body. What I'm suggesting to people now is that this isn't a time to either push your neuroplasticity bandwidth, because we're just under unprecedented levels of stress and uncertainty. But it's about embedding micro habits that will get you through this period and mean that when we come out of it, you've actually attended to some of those things that you always say, I know I should drink more water, I know I should be more active, I know I should go to bed earlier, but you don't always do. This is an opportunity to embed those, what I call micro habits, that have a cumulative effect on your brain power, so that once the crisis is over, if you want to do something to build your neuroplasticity, like learn a new language or take up a musical instrument or start up a new business or learn to cook, then you have, built your brain power up to a point where it has the bandwidth to do that, as well as restart your business, go back to the office, make your team cohesive again.
Mental health is a very stigmatized term, and at the end of the day, like, I had a mental health problem, and it's one of the main reasons I never thought of nutrition, because mental health for me and many people are associated with the same cures already. So you already know about meditation and therapy and all of the different things, talking to people that you might expect come from mental health, whereas brain health really starts to signify the physiological organ. So we like to think about, the inputs on brain health are ultimately sleep, hydration, nutrition, and oxygen. And we like to think about it from a physiological point of view, and really brain health being above the baseline. So at a time like this, when people are having their confidence knocked and their mental health challenged in general, is definitely important not to be trying to sell a product that that is going to make people consider that it's going to solve their problems, because it's not the case. Instead, as a brand, we think we have a great responsibility and a great opportunity to try and help people understand how their brain works. And that's really, to me, the biggest opportunity as a company. So our vision is to be the leading consumer brand for brain health and mental performance. When I say that, like, the vision I have in my head is very much like a Nike for running, or a Lululemon for yoga, or an Apple for technology. I do genuinely think about it like that. No one has created a brand in that space, because no one has been brand and consumer focused around a strong purpose. In order to do that, you don't bang on about a product ever. You go on and you understand what is the thing that your consumers are interested in. And for us, that's really human potential. And human potential can best be achieved, in many ways, but ultimately from understanding how you work. Building better habits, giving yourself a break when you need a break, making sure that you're honest and not pushing yourself past your actual limitations at that time. These are all things that really come in a very meta way from understanding ultimately how the supercomputer inside your head actually works. So to that end, we thought the best thing that we can do during COVID-19 essentially is not do any outbound marketing on our product at all. It feels like an irresponsible thing to do, but to invite some of the leading voices in the world from the brain health and mental wellness space to join us for a series of talks discussing and unpacking different topics every Thursday night. So we had this idea that lots of people around the world right now are going on YouTube and working out with their favorite celebrities, which is great, but working out is predominantly for your body. There are definitely brain benefits, as Tara knows well, but they're predominantly, you do them for your physical health. So we had this lovely idea that we kicked off last week with Tara, which is, if working out's for your body, then working in can be for your brain. It's like having a conversation, helping people understand more about their brain. And we think that's the responsibility at Heights, because as a business, and we can come on to this, the only place we make money is, of course, from selling a supplement that is a high quality product supplement. But nutrition is just one pillar of the conversation in brain health. So our perspective as a company is, if you open up people's interest and engagement into the different areas of their brain health, they may not yet be convinced that nutrition or a supplement is a worthwhile consideration or way in. And that's fine. But if you open up the conversation and they become interested, then somewhere ultimately down the funnel, it's a scientific fact. And wherever nutrition plays for you in the funnel, for example, for me, it was right at the bottom. It was the last thing I tried. Wherever you are in the funnel, it will eventually play a place. And if we're lucky, you'll choose us. But if you end up choosing to have a better brain health diet, then we've done our job from a media and publishing point of view as well. And that's really how the best brands win. The best brands do not win by getting Nicole Scherzinger to advertise for them, right? The best brands win by selling something really credible and having a big important mission, and making sure that other people are communicating it in a way that helps people. So that's really how we've thought about, I guess, approaching COVID-19 and our way of communicating. I host a podcast called Secret Leaders, and so I always get to hear, I'm so lucky, I get to hear so many different foundational stories of how companies are made. And, really there's two very common routes. One is you're looking for a problem to solve. So you've got the entrepreneurial itch and you're looking for something and an opportunity, and that's a very analytical way of looking at it. And the second is like an entirely emotional way where, you've had an experience and you have to dedicate your life to that emotional response, which I guess is, more the way that I found my way into this. But if you imagine my way in, okay, so I've suddenly had a experience where I've cured something through something that can come from nature, and then I look into the market and I see, there's the opportunity around having a quality product in comms, but it's a big category. And like ultimately, my first thought wasn't, shall we make a supplement at all? Our first thing that we did was write this newsletter. So the first thing I did was say, okay, I'm someone who likes science and spiritual woo-woo stuff at the same time. So, I'm like, right, I'm very open-minded to even the ridiculous goop Gwyneth Paltrow levels of nonsense. I've got crystals all over my house. So, and I wear crystals, beads and everything. So like, I am like edging on that side, but at the same time, I like science. So I'd like to get a sense of what consumers were actually doing and what was interesting to them. And so I decided that writing this newsletter on science papers, whenever I'd meet interesting and intelligent people, they'd all say, oh, I love science. Yeah, I love science, love it. And I'm like, oh, have you ever read a science paper? Like, yeah, absolutely. Listen, we've written this newsletter for 77 weeks. We always put the scientific reference in, usually to PubMed, and barely anyone actually clicks the link. It's completely reasonable. So what we learned really early on is people don't actually love science. They love to sound really smart at dinner parties. So we created this sort of tone of voice and way of making sure that we always include scientific references and always share science, but we do it in a way that is how people really communicate. And people always want to sound smart to other people and sound like they know just enough about this really interesting topic. So our way in, like I say, was this building a conversation and a community with content. And then we went and we did 200 customer interviews. There's 2 founders, so we did 100 each over 3 months, and we asked so many questions to people about their habits. That was really what we tried to understand. Who takes what do they do? Do people use apps? Do they use supplements? Like all this stuff. And they're very open questions, and I recommend a book to anyone here. This is for product discovery called The Mum Test. And the idea of the mum test is it basically it gives you a framework of questions that even if you were to ask your mum the questions, she'll find it hard to tell you that everything you're doing is absolutely brilliant. Because obviously your mum is always going to tell you that, but then you're going to create a crap business that no one wants. So it's very designed to give you very non-leading questions. So you are really specific about the information that you're getting. And the practical side of that is we got so much data back from people, and we actually realized that the interesting problem was most people were really interested in their mental performance more than they were brain health. Brain health feels like something that's further away, they don't need to worry about, but they are interested in their mental performance. They do all the normal things like have loads of coffee, and they still feel tired and they don't really have energy and they're not really sure why. And most people seem to have this practice of buying loads of supplements and then stopping the habit. Just by doing that process, you learn so many different things to figure out that, like, just by asking the questions, and you see the threads of where everyone's doing the same thing. So that's one thing I think really worth sharing in the founding story. But one other thing I really wanted to share, because it was a very helpful process, is if you're lucky enough to have a business partner, which essentially you sense check your ideas. We're very different, as Tara knows. So I need to do something that I find really emotional so that I can have energy and speak in passion with. It's really important for me. Whereas Joel is a highly logical and strategic person that has to put things into a spreadsheet and figure out whether or not there's a market opportunity, which is just not how I feel about the stuff. So I would be a terrible businessman to take advice from, and he'd be a very good one. But I'm very good at brand and passion. So what we decided to do was for 2 weeks, Monday to Friday, we both had to I sat at this table We both sat completely separately. 9 a.m. every single day. We weren't allowed to go to the bathroom again. So obviously, you go in the morning, you're not allowed to go to the bathroom again until you've written down 10 ideas every single day. What we did Monday to Friday, at the end on Friday, we compared 50 ideas that we'd both written. So we did it all in one go. The process for week 2, well, what are the main themes? Like, what are the things that we're both saying are interesting? And for Joel, they were things around mental performance and basically intermittent fasting and a bunch of, Silicon Valley crap. And for me, it was way more about, health and wellness and sleep and, and you could see. And the other one that we did investigate the following week, by the way, was actually consumer product goods in environmentally friendly, category. So the second week, every idea that we then discovered and discussed together was either in brain health and mental performance or environmentally sustainable cleaning products, which sounds like two very random categories, but they were the only things independently. Joel's approach was, what's the big opportunity? And mine was, what's the thing I think I'd get really excited about doing for the next 10 years of my life? Well, those were the two things that had overlap, over 50 ideas each. It's a really great way of honing them in. And at the end of the second week, all the best ideas that we had were around brain health and mental wellness, but we were able to validate ideas really quickly by getting on the phone to people and asking them questions. So that process created a really great limitation, because I tell you honestly, it is difficult, and I really empathize with anyone looking to start a business. It's really difficult when you could do anything. It isn't helpful to be able to do anything in the world, because it means it really stops you starting. Actually, I found that having that process, which I have to say my friend Rachel gave to me, I didn't come up with it myself. It was a really stringent, really healthy process. You don't need a second person to do it, right? You just need to get to a point of writing 50 questions and at the end of the week saying, okay, out of these, even out of your own, what are the ones that keep repeating themselves every day? And you start to see a trend in your own work. Like, this is clearly the stuff I find really interesting. Next week, I'm going to refine these ideas.
And thank you so much again, and be safe, be well, everyone, and talk soon.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone, for listening.